ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive.
It is Friday, July 28th. Your drive begins now on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann, here until 6 o'clock. We'll get those texts in this hour, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Got a fun show planned for you today. Luke Creasy is going to join me, the beat writer of the Thundering Herd for HD Media. He's going to come in about 5:30. We're going to catch up with him. He was down at Media Days a few days ago, so we'll get the latest from him. We'll get your text in, as I mentioned, and here in a few minutes, we're going to be joined by the voice of the Ashland Tomcats, Dicky Martin. Great partnership announced a couple of days ago here at Kinder Communications. We are partnering up with the Ashland Tomcats, and we'll be broadcasting their games all season long on our sister station, Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. So we're going to talk to him here in the next few minutes. Looking forward to that. But until then, we will open up the text line. And again, one more time, that number 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Last night, game you heard right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. It was Heard That getting the very best of Best Virginia, 74-61. Leading scorer, Heard That's John Elmore with 16, and James Kelly also with 16. Rob Gray had 15 in the contest as well. As Heard That got the win. When we got to the Elam ending, it pretty much, I think, was a done deal. I think it was pretty much a done deal. Now, Best Virginia did, after the first, have an 18-13 advantage over Heard That, but Heard That made it a little bit more interesting in the second. And then the third, a lot more interesting. By the time we got to the fourth, I think it was all said and done. And really, how did Heard That win this game? Well, first of all, for the game, Heard That shot 28 of 66. Much better than Best Virginia's 18 of 59. The free throw line, that's where Best Virginia was a little bit more successful. 20 of 30, whereas Heard That was 13 of 27. Field goal percentage, an abysmal 30.5% for Best Virginia. Heard That was a little bit better, 42.4. Three-point line wasn't very good for either team, but it seemed like more timely for Heard That. 5 of 26 from the three-point line, whereas Best Virginia was only able to manage 5 of 29. I think you got to look at where the hustle points came from. Where were the most important points coming from? And that's something I like to do during Marshall games. We'll do it here. Points in the paint. Heard That won that battle 40-18. Points off turnovers, 22-14 in favor of Heard That. Second chance points belonging to Heard That, 14-12. Fast break, that's a Heard That stat, 27-9. Fast break points. And bench points, about even, 16 for Heard That, Best Virginia 17. And some of the names that I thought I would see more, and for obvious reasons, I don't know if we're going to see that much of Tavion Kinsey. He was 0 of 3. He was out there for about 12 minutes. We didn't see that much of Jared West. He had 4 minutes of game time here. Instead, I think bench management was pretty smart on Heard That's part. Your best scorers are out there. Derek Cook Jr. came off the bench and added 10. He had 20 minutes of game time. I like what Heard That was able to do. Announced attendance about 2,000. It was probably 70-30 in favor of West Virginia, or Best Virginia, however you want to say it. And I wasn't expecting anything less. You're in Wheeling, 2,000's the attendance. It was a pretty quick game. It started at 7:06 and it ended at 9:07. So 2 hours, pretty quick game. It was highly entertaining. I thought the fans got into it. I know my social media timeline got into it. Got to play this thing every year on the next level, right? You got to get this thing going again. Hopefully you can in future years. Of course, This is a little different. You've got alumni teams going after each other, and you bring in some extras to kind of flesh your team out. And honestly, I think Heard That tooled its team better than Best Virginia. Honestly, tooled the team better, and I think you're seeing the benefits here. Now, tomorrow we're going to have that game 2 o'clock between Heard That and Sideline Cancer. Sideline Cancer getting the victory over Challenge ALS Florida 60-51. So we'll have that, and that's coming up tomorrow, 2 o'clock right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Texter coming in. First up, Texter says, love that Huggins was there to watch the team he wanted nothing to do with beat his old players. Maybe he was, we'll leave it at that. I got to edit these things on the fly sometimes. He did, as the texter say, ruined a great rivalry for the state. I thought it was a great game. And, of course, John Flowers was out there, and TBT posted that. It wasn't a rivalry. Of course, they're gonna have that line. It's not a rivalry, but yet everybody was into it. So tell me how that wasn't a rivalry if everyone was into it, both West Virginia and Marshall fans. Explain that away to me. It wasn't a rivalry. I mean, you had the Mountaineer mascot there. Tell me it's not a rivalry. It's not important. It's a fun game. Best Virginia, Heard That. These two teams like each other, gracious in victory, gracious in defeat. They get along, and I think that Best Virginia, very gracious, very classy in defeat, and I think Heard That, very gracious and classy in victory. And it has been on the other side before, where Heard That's had been the gracious loser and Best Virginia has been the gracious winner. So I like the game. If this is the closest we're going to get, that's fine with me. I like the game. But I do like how Heard That has retooled because, sure, school pride is there. You want to represent your school. This is an alumni team, right? You want to represent your school. I get that. But at the same time, you can tool a little bit because we're talking about playing for $1 million here. So you want to put the very best team you possibly can and make a run. And I think Heard That is poised to make a run as the next opponent is Sideline Cancer. And again, we've got that for you Saturday, 2 o'clock right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. We're going to turn our attention a little bit to high school football when we continue. I want to bring onto the program a good friend of mine, Dicky Martin. He's been calling Ashland Tomcat games probably since before a lot of you were born. And we'll talk to him when we continue later on. Luke Creasy from HD Media. He's going to check in with us, get us caught up on everything that he's got working on right now for HD Media, and, of course, his time in New Orleans for Sunbelt Media Days. We'll catch up with him. All that's coming up, plus your text 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. More coming up on this edition of The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Do you want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform. It lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. And video podcasts are also available on Spotify. So if you do a video podcast, upload it. It'll be an audio podcast just like that. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. I love free with no catch. And ever since I discovered Spotify for Podcasters, I feel like I've got options. I highly recommend you give it a try too. Find out what options are available for you. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
We're taking Paul Swann everywhere. Download or subscribe to The Drive with Paul Swann on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the Friday edition, The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I want to welcome back to the program. It's been a few years since we've had him on. He is the longtime voice of the Ashland Tomcats, and it was just announced that new partnership has been formed between Ashland and Kindred Communications, and coming up here in a few short weeks will be your exclusive home of Tomcats football and basketball on Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. And joining me now to tell me more about the Tomcats and let's talk about the partnership is Dicky Martin. You know, the good thing is, Dicky, I get to talk to you every week now during high school season because, well, I mean, that was a highlight of my years gone by. So I feel like it's all fallen back into place finally here. You're back with me.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And first of all, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be on your show and so forth and so on. Looking very excited and really looking forward to being with Kindred Communications back on the old AM 1340 WCMI and Cats Sports Radio. So it's going to be fun and I've had a good time. Of course, I started out at WCMI AM 1340 way back in the early 70s, and I did my first play-by-play broadcast on WCMI in 1976. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I was born before you began. Okay, at least let's just say that. I was alive when you did. Yeah, barely, just by a few years. And, of course, you know, WCMI, we call it Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340 because, of course, we've got the translator there now so people can listen to it either on 1340 or on the FM side, 93.3. So, you know, back then it was just...
And, Paul, it's also important to tell everyone that we're on the Internet because I had, in the years of my broadcasting, of course, and the Internet just came into play, you know, a few years ago, but I get calls from all over literally all over the world with people listening, whether they be military man based in wherever, you know, but they literally or on vacation in France. You know, I get calls all the time. I'm listening to you, Dicky. I'm in blah 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 blah. And okay, fine.
That's a big thing. We got everybody covered. Yeah. Let me tell everyone first and foremost, if they're not familiar with Cat Sports, we've got a website, catsports933.com, so people can go there, and we'll start posting games on podcasting. That's still a thing, so we'll put that stuff up there if they want to maybe go back and listen to it. We have a internet stream listen live link there on the website, so if you just want to pull your computer up, you can listen to it there. We've also got links on our website where you can download our streaming app for either your Android or your iPhone. So whatever you've got, we've got a streaming app for you. And we've got an Alexa skill. You can at times just tell your Alexa to play Cat Sports 93.3 once you enable the skill.
Alexa, play Cat Sports 93.3.
And she should do it.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have Alexa, but my son and my grandson do because they're obviously a lot more technically inclined than I am, but I'll try that when I'm over at their house this weekend. I'll give that a shot. By golly.
Yeah, tell them to go to the website if they need to go and enable the skill. So there's a link right there, and people can listen to it on their Echo, their Alexa device, and they can stream it with the app on their phone, on the computer. So we've got everybody covered that wants to listen to this.
That's what's most important of all.
So anybody can listen anywhere. But
that's right.
You're back on pretty much where it started for you.
Exactly.
How's it feel to maybe come?
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's even go back further than that, Paul.
Okay.
You can go back to 1952 when my dad started out at WCMI AM 1340 broadcasting the Tomcat game. 1952.
So it means a lot then that you're back where it all started.
It means about everything. You know, I'm not a spring chicken anymore, and my dad started out in 1952 and broadcast the Tomcats right up until he let me take over by myself. Now, the first few years, he and I did the broadcast together back in the mid to late 70s, and we had a fellow on the air with us, Pete Swann. We called him Pete James. He was on the air with us, but anyway. And then he let me take over in the late 70s by myself. It was time for my dad to hang the microphone up, so to speak, and I was a play-by-play man, and Dad was my color man, believe it or not, even though he was a lot better and still is to this day doing play-by-play. But I had to learn somehow, so that's how I learned. And with the help of my mom and dad, that's what it was, and it's great to be back. And to answer your question, yes, it's good to be back where it all started, and I pray that that's where it will end one day.
We hope it's a long and fruitful partnership as well.
Well, I do too.
It feels good.
I'm hoping I'm around to see all that. The good Lord's been very good to me. I've been very blessed to be able to broadcast the Tomcats, who I obviously dearly love, and so that's what we do. We're going to continue to do it, by golly.
What makes Ashland so special? There are communities across the country where high school, depending on where you're at in the country, either it's okay, hey, great, yeah, the high school's doing its thing, or it's a community like Ashland where everybody knows everyone. And Ashland's not a small community by any stretch of the imagination. It's a nice-sized community, but it still has that feel where everybody – it's a community. The high school is important to the community.
Right.
And it still feels like a big deal to be on the radio.
Exactly. Most of the people in Ashland have grown up and lived here all their lives. But the ones that come in from out of town, we embrace them. We love their company, and we show them the love of Ashland, not only of our wonderful city and great community we have, but the love for the Tomcats. We have been, and I say this on the broadcast all the time, the Tomcats are the Super Bowl of everyone we play. You can win one game all year, but if you beat the Tomcats, by golly, you've done it, And I've seen it happen for years and years and years, and we'll get the best game, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, or tiddlywinks. We always get the opponent's best game. And that's fine. That's what we expect. So we have got to be ready to play, and the people that come to the games, listen to the games, have, our alumni. They played for the Tomcats, maybe even played against the Tomcats. But now they're Tomcats. And there's just something special about going to Putnam Stadium on a Friday evening. It's a community gathering. People come, and they couldn't tell me who. People would come, and after the game they'll say, "Who won?" They're there to enjoy the atmosphere, to people watch, to see the cheerleaders, the band, whatever the case may be. Most pay attention to the game, but there are some that just sit there and want to enjoy the atmosphere, and it's a great atmosphere. It honest to God is, and there's not, in my opinion, you can't find another atmosphere like playing a football game at Putnam Stadium on a Friday night. That's just, there's just nothing like it. Nothing like it.
Dicky Martin's with us. He's the longtime voice of the Ashland Tomcats, and new partnership announced between Kindred Communications and the Ashland Tomcats. We will be the radio home for Ashland Tomcats football, basketball, and anything else Dicky can propose will be carried out.
There you go.
On Cat Sports.
We're going to do a few girls basketball games. We've done some over the last few years. Don't do them all. But because I ain't up to it, I'll be quite honest with you. I just don't have that. I can't go 4, 5, 6 nights a week. But we do. Last year we did 12 or 15 games because the girls had a great run in the tournament and so forth. And we're going to do some girls basketball games, and they're fun to watch, and they're very exciting, and they're very good, which is nice cherry on top. So that's good.
And that doesn't happen for a lot of high schools. They don't have a radio station that maybe is interested enough to want to carry some of the girls' games as well. And so
exactly,
I think what makes our partnership, and of course, I'm biased. I work here. So I've worked here for many years.
There you go.
So I'm biased about this. But
sure,
what makes, I think, this company perfect to partner with the Tomcats is we're locally owned. If I ever have a problem or question, I can go down the hall and talk to the guy who has a bank note that he's trying to pay off every month because he's he's the local owner. And
there you go.
It's local, it's community based, And we even named the station ahead of time. We knew eventually we would get you, right?
We knew it was coming, right?
Yeah, Cat Sports. We knew it was coming, so we renamed the station Cat Sports.
Of course.
And of course,
I'm glad it's there.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I'm glad it's local. I've been with another station for many years, and it's always, well, I got to call corporate. I got to do this. Well, corporate, as you said, it's right down the hall. I can call you, Mike, Bill, whoever, and say, hey, guess what? This would be a good event. We need to do this.
And we hope and we hope that's what's going to happen here because again, we want to make sure that we are building, and it will take time, obviously, but we're going to build WCMI 1340 back into, and it's Ashland's radio station, but we're going to really make sure that it's Ashland's radio station. With the Tomcats, We've got UK. We carry those games as well. We carry the Cincinnati Bengals. Basically, if it's a cat, we carry it. And all our favorite teams in Kentucky seem to have cat themes. So if it's a cat, we carry it. Yeah.
There you go. And there's only one Tomcat. There might be Wildcats and whatever, but the best of my knowledge, the only Tomcats in the state of Kentucky is Ashland. So there you go.
Dicky Martin's with us, the longtime voice of the Ashland Tomcats. And, of course, the good news for me is definitely at least once a week on Friday nights I get to talk to Dicky. And we've got a game coming up here in a few weeks. It's going to be
3 weeks from tonight. We play football, believe it or not.
Yeah, it's going to be Ashland taking on Raceland. I hear that's a rivalry. I hear that's a thing.
It is. It's become a real nice rivalry, and they whipped our butts last year, to be honest with you. And we struggled at the first of the year. We were 1-3. We were young, very inexperienced, but Chad Tackett and his staff did a marvelous job saying, guys, let's stay with the program, stay with what we're going to do. We're going to be okay. And by golly, we were okay. We won 8 straight and went all the way to the state semifinals. And, we don't have any excuses this year. We got to start out hot and stay hot. There's no inexperience. There's no youth. Everybody, is experienced. They're a year older, so we have no excuses. We got to start out hot and stay hot and go on down to Commonwealth Stadium December and play for all the marbles.
Dicky Martin with us, longtime voice of the Ashland Tomcats, and the season's coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So we got to get everything in order, ready to go, and we'll do that, of course, on our sister station. That's Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. But the good news is, Dicky, if you're on one station, you're on them all. So
there you go.
We are now partnered with the Tomcats, so that means we're all Tomcat fans all across our kindred radio station. So. I'm excited. I really am because
I am too.
Yeah, this is special for me because again, my personally, I want to see that radio station become Ashland Sports Station, Kentucky Sports Station, what we branded, and this is going to go a long way to make sure that Ashland really feels like it has a local station, and not just a station the Tomcats are on, but a local station for Ashland and the area.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you all the way, and that's what we need, and it'll be locally done, and it's not you'll see obviously you'll see me, but you'll see the other local personalities, and because we're not in Buffalo, New York, we're right here in Huntington and Ashland and Ironton and whatever the case may be. We're right here. We're not hard to find.
So if we screw up, you can find us. There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, if we mess up, you know where to find us, and we can fix it real quick.
You got that right.
Dicky Martin with us, the longtime voice of the Ashland Tomcats. I'll be talking to you here in a couple of weeks. We got to get back into rhythm. You would do the crew report. You remember that years ago?
Oh, yes. Remember that well.
Yeah, you got to show these other guys how to do it. They don't know.
Well, I'm not, I ain't that good, okay?
No, let me tell you. You got to show these, I can't get this collection of announcers to do it the way you and I used to. We're going to show them up, buddy. We're going to show them up and show them how it's really done.
We can do that. We can do that. There's no problem with that.
Yeah, we'll make that happen. Good talking to you, Dicky. We'll do it again real soon.
Paul, it's a pleasure talking to you. I look forward to doing this quite often. it's good to be home. Thank you to Kindred Communications and Mike and yourself and Bill and all the guys and Reeves and all the guys. It's a match made in heaven, in my opinion, because this is where my dad started. This is where I will continue and hopefully end my career someday. And I'm really, really, really excited. It's going to be a great fun year of football and basketball, and the Tomcats are going to be pretty good in both of them, so you can count on that.
Excellent. Dicky Martin, longtime voice of the Ashland Tomcats, back home. Thanks, brother. We'll do it soon.
Okay, thank you, Paul. It's been a pleasure, my friend.
Dicky Martin, games coming up this fall in a couple of weeks on Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. When we continue, my friend and the beat writer for HC Media covering the Thundering Herd, Luke Creasy, when we continue on this edition of The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
We continue on with our Friday edition. I want to welcome back to the program now good friend and the top guy covering Marshall athletics for the Herald-Dispatch, Luke Creasy. Can I build you up any more? Did I miss anything?
No, I think you're good.
Top guy? I think top guy.
That was a lovely introduction.
Top guy works. I mean, it says everything you need to know. So you were like the only Marshall guy at Sunbelt Media Days representing the media. So it was you carrying the banner for all Herd fandom.
Yep. And I am sad to report that I did not have a cowboy hat like one Owen Porter did down there.
For a guy who seems like he's soft-spoken, he really brought attention to himself, didn't he?
Well, I think maybe he was hoping more people would pay attention to the hat than what he had to say. And it did draw some attention to itself.
Overall, how would you walk away from this event? How do you feel walking away from this, talking to coaches? And I know you got a lot of stuff coming up, so you can't give away all your secrets right now. But walking away from this, how do you feel?
I think just as a whole, the conference does a good job of bringing teams and even the media together for something like this. Media days are fun for a lot of reasons. You get some face time with some guys that maybe you wouldn't normally. That's specifically when you're talking about student athletes from other programs. Every team in the Sun Belt brought their head coach and then two student athletes. And in most cases, that was one offensive and one defensive. For the opportunity to meet with media. And then, of course, how it works with media circles. A lot of times you can establish friends within those circles. And so it was good to reconnect with some of those guys as well as, kind of the kickoff to football season. Summer's winding down. Everybody's going to start camp next week. And, there's just a general feeling, and I know the commissioner specifically feels this way, that after what the conference did last year in their first year as a 14-team league, only stands to build on that for what's to come this year. I think when you look at weeks 1 through 3 of last year, when you had, some group of 5 teams from the Sun Belt that get wins at Power 5 schools, Old Dominion beat Virginia Tech in week 1. And then, App State hosts College Game Day in week 3, and that just created a huge amount of exposure for the league as a whole. And they're really kind of banking on those 3 weeks and hopefully not catching lightning in a bottle. They'd like to see more of that. And so, overall, I think the league's in a good spot. There's certainly a group of 14 head coaches that like coaching in this league, and it sets up well for fans in 2023.
I know expansion was brought up a couple of days ago when the commissioner opened up Media Day, and he addressed that. And then Colorado happened. I wonder how he's thinking this one through now.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of how the dominoes fall and in what direction they fall. The great thing about the Sun Belt Conference right now, one, it's got, an even 14 teams that allows for divisions, 7 in each division. You can have 6 conference games within your division and have 2 crossover games. So scheduling wise, 14 teams sets up perfectly. Now, if you add to that, I don't think you want to add just one team. Even the Big 12 has come out and said now that they've added Colorado, they'd like to add one more. Even numbers work well in college football. And so I think, if you did look at adding more to the Sun Belt, you're looking at not one, but maybe 2 teams. And you want it to fit in the existing geographic footprint. And I think there are a few teams that come to mind when you think of that. The 2 that I've seen fans divert to most often are Memphis and East Carolina. But the thing is, take ECU, for example. Do they want to take a step back, from the American? So there's a lot of questions when you talk about realignment, because the American Athletic Conference, when people talk about premier group of 5 conferences, that's right in the discussion with the Sun Belt. So do you make a lateral move? Is it a step back? I don't know. But I think, and the commissioner agrees, that the setup they've got right now is perfect. 14 teams. You've got, 10 geographic, 10 states that make up that geographic footprint. The furthest west, of course, being San Marcos, Texas, which is the only school from the Lone Star State in the Sun Belt. So I think they've got a pretty good setup right now. And, they're relatively new to being a 14-team league. I mean, they're just getting used to this thing and how it looks to be a league of this size. And so I unless something huge happens, I don't see anything happening for, this year or next year. Maybe in 2025 you start having that discussion after, some of the teams from the Mountain West Conference, might be able to move and avoid some exit fees then. College football realignment, I think, is something we're going to visit as a topic every single year. But, and I think the Sun Belt is always going to be in those discussions, at least from a media and fan perspective, because it is a good conference. And I think when you look at that potential, there's always potential for growth, but I don't think the Sun Belt is going to move too quick on anything, because what they've got right now works, and they don't want to do anything to mess that up.
And elevation by consistency is a strong possibility, as it's going to basically, in my mind, be the Big Ten and SEC. That's your top 2, back and forth top 2. And then might be, honestly, in this order, Big 12, ACC, that could fluctuate. And then that 5 spot, and it's not going to be a new Power 5. It's going to be 4 really powerful conferences. And everyone else, you could see the American and the Sun Belt just battling back and forth to be maybe that number 5 spot, just and prestige and money and everything. Because you might not have to worry about it. You might just elevate yourself there to the point where you're consistent and you're in a good spot.
Yeah, I think the Pac-12 is really going to struggle. And I think I even saw something about Florida State being willing to move from the ACC. And if that happens, it creates a whole other layer of this thing. I guess conference realignment and transfer portal are just 2 things we're going to have to talk about every single year from here on out.
Luke Creasy is with us from HT Media. He covers the Thundering Herd. He was most recently covering Sunbelt Media Day. And while you were at Sunbelt Media Day, I was talking to Phil Steele, because you mentioned the transfer portal, and it was funny. He was happy that the transfer portal date got pushed back to a certain day so he could get it all in his magazine.
That magazine is a fantastic resource, so I'm happy that worked out too.
Yeah, he was talking about that. And of course, he was telling me about his Plus service, which makes him an expert on any school, at any time, when he does a radio interview. But the transfer portal has really shooken up everything to the point now where, I don't know how you do your job, because you have to be more aware on a daily basis of stuff like that. That's in your purview. So you have to be on top of that.
Yeah.
And it probably feels like sometimes that you don't have a moment off.
Yeah, especially when there weren't the windows that there are now. I think the windows definitely help. Of course, that doesn't apply to everybody because as a grad transfer, you can go into that portal at any time. But it definitely has changed the layout of what works for different teams from year to year. When you look at Marshall's roster specifically, there are 40 new players on this year's team versus last year's. And last year, there were 48 new players. And so, it's one of those things, Huff told me, it's almost like entering year one with the team every single season because you have so many players that haven't been on your team before, maybe that you've had relationships with in the past, be it recruiting or playing against. But, it's created just a different dynamic. I think when you talk to people from Coastal Carolina, Tim Beck told me, he goes, the biggest recruit we had this offseason was our own quarterback. And that being Grayson McCall, who entered the portal after last year, just not because he necessarily wanted to leave Coastal Carolina, but because he had to enter the portal to be able to explore other options. With Jamie Chadwell leaving and, their defensive coordinators now, elsewhere in the conference, and the offensive coordinator's gone. And so, there was a whole bunch of change, and, that gives players some flexibility. But, they are truly, they as in coaches are having to recruit, their teams back year after year. And so, it's not exactly free agency. And obviously, you can't make trades in college football, but you're starting to see, I think there are 3 or 4 former Marshall guys playing elsewhere in the Sun Belt this year. Shadid Ahmed, Dan Foster are out at Texas State. Emmanuel Bush is at James Madison. E.J. Jackson went to App State. And then, Marshall brought in a transfer from App State as a linebacker. So there's all kinds of, just like, when we talk about realignment, there's levels to it. There's levels to the portal as well. And so it does sometimes make things difficult to keep track of. And, maybe it's a good thing they don't mass produce college football jerseys because they'd be outdated much quicker than even NFL jerseys are sometimes. So, I think it's good for these student athletes to have options. We talk about exposure and, I don't have as big of a problem with the transfer portal as a lot of different people do. Everybody's got their opinion on it, but, I think it, like any coach will tell you, and I don't know how many times Huff has said this in press conferences, the portal's here whether you like it or not, and so you're just going to have to figure out how to navigate it. And, I think it makes things fun. 25 of the 40 that new players that Marshall has are from the transfer portal. And then 5 are JUCO and 10 are high school freshmen. So, freshmen out of high school. It creates a different dynamic, but I think it's one that, coaches and players and media people are learning to navigate all together.
Luke Creasy's with us, HD Media. So at Sunbelt Media Days, what did you learn? What came out of Media Days that maybe you didn't know? Like, for example, everybody's going to go undefeated, right? That's probably the thing you heard 14 times. Everybody's going to go undefeated.
Oh yeah. I think one of the stories, and it published a couple of days ago. One of the stories that I really had a lot of fun with was looking at coaches and their, connection to either West Virginia as a state, Huntington or Marshall. And I think you'd be surprised at how connected, and how many stories people have about the Herd, whether that was, playing against them as a player. Then the guys like G.J. Kinney, who played for Tulsa in 2011 and absolutely torched Doc Holliday's herd. Threw for like 302 and 4 touchdowns, something like that, and didn't even play the fourth quarter. And guys like Butch Jones and Terry Bowden, who at one point in their careers interviewed to be the head coach at Marshall. So I learned a lot about Marshall historically and some of the connections that exist there. And I also learned that Sean Clark, who we all know as App State's head coach, and of course grew up in Charleston, I know his tutor's order now. So you learn a lot, but really just a great time of getting to know some of these coaches and some of the players. And some of those conversations are ones that I'll hang on to and use throughout the season. In general, just a really good time of getting to know some of these guys, and guys that the herd's going to run into sooner or later.
So what is Sean Clark's tutor's order?
There's a Peppy with an egg added to it. My wife is a big Peppy fan, but doesn't like eggs, so I don't know that I'll ever be able to convince her to try that one. I'm not a Peppy guy. I'm more of a Mary B. But yeah, he asked me to bring one down to Boone when Marshall goes down there later this year. I don't know if I'll be able to pull that off or not. It might be a little cold by the time I got it there.
I mean, if you got like an insulated bag, maybe you might be able to pull it off.
Yeah, that's true. Drop it off to the SID. Say, hey, this is for Coach.
Okay, so your wife's a Peppy, and you said you were a.
I'm more of a Mary B.
Mary B. Okay, I need to remember that. I'm not going to lie. I thought Sean Clark would be a Mountaineer. I'm not going to lie. I really did. I thought he was going to be a Mountaineer.
I mean, that would make the most sense, right?
Right.
We just need to get Charles Huff to be a Thundering Herd biscuit guy, and then, maybe the next time they come up here, they can have breakfast or something. I'll
take them. You know why? Because I'm not going to lie. I am a Thundering Herd. That's my tutor's order.
There you go.
And
there you go.
I'm not going to lie. I got 2 Thundering Herds the other day. One for breakfast, one for lunch.
I respect it.
And the only reason why I got 2 was because a Huntington High booster said, I have a discount card, Paul. Would you help me out? And I'm friends with her. So $10 later, I have this booster card for the Huntington High football team.
Yeah.
Free herd with purchase of a herd and medium drink. And it works.
Well, it just makes too much sense.
Right. So if you ever want to go to breakfast, let me know. We're good.
Sounds good.
I can take care. And they said I can mix and match, at least at my tutors, because I walked in, and they're like, hey, you never come in. It was true story. I walked in, and they're looking at me like, okay, did we do something wrong? What's wrong here? You're in the store. Yeah, we only see you from the car. So, no, I'm excited to know that. Luke Creasy is with us. Going to be taking him to breakfast soon, I've now committed myself to here. So, are you heading up to Wheeling, or are they giving coverage to you now of Heard That now that Best Virginia is out of the TBT? Is that fall on you?
No. Jared McDonald's handling that for us. I flew back in from New Orleans and landed in Huntington about an hour before they played that game yesterday. So Jared McDonald, who is our WVU beat writer, he's up there continuing that coverage. And then also Taylor Kennedy, who's people might know from Metro News. He spent the last few years there. He's actually with HD Media now. Writing for the Gazette Mail, so I think he's having some continued coverage of TBT. Heard that, and I'm going to enjoy that one from a distance, and because we're going to blink and the weekend's going to be over, and then Marshall football is going to be in fall camp. So, and that just creates a whole nother week of months of work. So. We're going to enjoy that from afar and rest up and get ready for football season.
Yeah, I have to do load management in a weird way. Next week I'm here, then after that load management, then back at it. So, August is here, man. Football season, I'm looking forward to it. I get to see you in the press box, and I get to see a lot of people I haven't seen in a while. We know it's work at the end of the day, but it's fun because of the people, and I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
Give your wife my best. Give your father-in-law my best. Give your mother-in-law my best. Just give your entire family my best.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'll give them Paul Swann's blessing.
Yeah, please do that. Luke Creasy's with me, the longtime beat writer of the Herald Dispatch. That's going to be in a few years. That's going to be your title, longtime beat writer.
Long time. I mean,
time.
how many years do I have to work until I'm considered long time?
In this day and age, I think 2 more.
Okay.
I think
we'll do for it.
I think you got it. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
More coming up. It's The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
We're wrapping up today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Thanks for tuning in. I want to thank right now our 2 guests today. Luke Creasy, you just heard, the beat writer for the Herald Dispatch, and good friend of mine, Dicky Martin, who is the longtime voice of the Ashland Tomcats. If you weren't with us earlier, Kindred Communications, our parent company, announcing a new partnership with Ashland High School. Tomcats games are going to be broadcast on our sister station, where they used to be, on WCMI. It's now known as Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. So WCMI AM and the translator forming Cat Sports 93.3 and 1340. So that's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back with you next week. Final week of me for a little bit. Then I got load management. I have to do load management because I'm going to lose these days if I don't use them. So I got to do load management. Then we'll be all ready to go and set for football season. As Coach Huff said, talking season's over. We got camp coming up. Looking forward to it. Have a great night.
WRBC Huntington, W227BS Huntington. This is your radio home for Pittsburgh Pirates baseball, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.